Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. We had a great show on Friday. I've been looking forward to getting right back in the saddle here. Thank you for all the comments. We spent the full show talking about the Trump verdict, and we've got a lot of updates for you on that this morning. I thought first we'd start with kind of a positive story. Congressman Nick Langworthy joined families and local officials. As a matter of fact, they even have a photo. And local officials at the Steuben County Dairy Festival to highlight provisions that support dairy farmers in the 2024 Farm Bill. 6 bills crafted and sponsored by Congressman Langworthy were included in the final Farm Bill package, ranging from support for maple producers and grape growers to rural job training and health care. I mentioned that last week, but he had this to say. Dairy farmers are essential to our agricultural industry and economy in Western New York and the Southern Tier. I've always been committed to ensuring that they have the support and resources they need. That's why I introduced the Dairy Pricing Opportunity Act to bring much-needed reforms to the dairy pricing system, helping to stabilize milk prices and ensure that our farmers receive a fair return. It was an honor to celebrate their hard work and dedication at the annual Steuben County Dairy Festival today, and that was on Saturday. If you happen to go, I also heard from some of you over the weekend that you went to the Reese Ranch Rodeo. We had that interview last week. Sounds like it's a fun time. I talked to someone here at work that went as well. I was busy, couldn't make it this Saturday, but I know I want to make it before the season is out, and they have 9 more events. So it sounds like a fun time, and I'm glad so many people went because of this program. I appreciate it. Now, we do have some updates this morning on anti-Israel protests. We've got a few things here about the Biden administration. Of course, Hunter Biden's trial is to begin. Some information on that. Hakeem Jeffries saying nothing there. That Hunter did nothing wrong. We'll talk about that as well. And we're going to give you both sides to the Trump verdict. We've got a lot of information there. First, mass protesters taunted the New York City Israel Day. Now, there was a lot of concern about safety at the Israel Day. There's actually protesters holding a vile, quote, "kill hostages now" sign. A masked maniac tried to disrupt Sunday's Israel Day parade, taunting marchers and supporters with a vile sign reading "kill hostages now." The protester, wearing a black mask, of course, black shirt, and wearing a Palestinian flag as a cape, was part of a group of anti-Israel demonstrators who faced off with pro-Israeli New Yorkers near the parade route. Now, like I said, there's, of course, some concern about safety. But this is nothing new. I mean, that's what we talked about so often with the masks. What typically a terrorist group does is wear masks to cover their faces. This year's Israel Day Parade in New York features numerous family members of hostages who were kidnapped by Hamas and taken to Gaza on October the 7th. At one point, an Israeli supporter came face-to-face with a man whose face was covered with that traditional Palestinian scarf. The NYPD stepped in to separate the two groups before any violence broke out during the tense exchange. The annual Israeli Pride Parade took place under heightened police security this year amid a recent spike in anti-Semitic incidents and protests, including several that have led to clashes with NYPD cops in riot gear. So as we said, this wasn't just going to be on college campuses. That's where the focus was. And we had the story for you last week that I think was downplaying what we're seeing, suggesting that the numbers are small. That's not what's important. These protesters are getting their way. They're getting their demands met on college campuses. You see the President of the United States changing his policy on Israel because of these protesters worried about the vote in November. So I think it's something that has to be taken seriously, and that vile, just to show you who they are, as there's people there who have family members that are hostages, a vile, despicable, disgusting sign from one of the anti-Israel protesters reading "kill hostages now." And now there's kind of a weird twist in this, because we've talked about how Palestine and Free Palestine has become a rallying cry for every issue. Whatever your issue may be, it's all with the struggle of Palestine is what we've learned. So you kind of see the left almost turning on the left here. Hundreds of anti-Israel protesters brought the Philadelphia gay pride parade to a halt. Hundreds of LGBTQ revelers were met by the political protesters chanting the anti-Israel slogan, "Palestine will live forever from the sea to the river." That was at the end of the parade route in the city of brotherly love. The showdown took place, well, you don't need to know all that specifics, but at one point, the anti-Israel crowd screamed, "PPP, KKK, IOF, they are all the same," while cops corralled them on one side of the junction, and the pride marchers looked on with perplexed and dampened expressions. It must be tough when, if members of this parade, if they are on the left. We talked about it when it comes to Jewish students who have always, and this was early on in the protest, who have always, Jewish students and Jewish members of the community who have always supported the right cause, right? Maybe they were out marching and chanting for various left causes. And then to see the left so quickly after October 7th turn on them, it must be kind of heartbreaking. Same here, where you have a crowd that maybe, I mean, I guess kind of a stereotype, but may typically lean left and support left causes being attacked by what you would consider your own. Now, it's not immediate clear in that chant what the PPP referred to. Some suggesting maybe it was Philly Pride Parade. Now, KKK and IOF were apparent references to the Ku Klux Klan and the Israel occupation forces. Some protesters in the anti-Israel group held up a rainbow flag with the words "No Pride and Genocide" painted on it. Now, what do these people at this parade have to do with a genocide? This is where it gets very confusing. It's the same when you're protesting on college campuses, and I know I always reference this one protester, but who went on a hunger strike and then complained that she was, you guessed it, hungry. And my thought is, they're so narcissistic that she honestly believed that when she said she was going on a hunger strike, that the peace in the Middle East would break out. Now, we have not gotten any updates. We don't know how that hunger strike ended up. But meanwhile, in New York City, we talked about the Israel Day Parade taking place in Manhattan, where the same sort of reaction happened, these anti-Israel protesters. But as I mentioned, it's not just on college campuses. It's not just at parades and the like. At a private school in New York City, it has devolved into a, quote, hotbed of Jew hate, end quote, as parents detailed teacher flipping off a rabbi and a group trying to cancel a Holocaust survivor. A Jewish student who graduated from the Ethical Fieldston School in the Bronx was tormented by classmates calling him an ethnic cleaner and a colonizer, and even witnessed a teacher give the rabbi a middle finger at an assembly. Fieldston is a hotbed of Jew hate, and these terror-supporting students are the epitome of the trigger warning generation. Ooh, that's a very good point. And we talk about that with trigger warnings. We talk about, love trumps hate, and then you see this anti-Semitic vial that they are pushing. So this isn't even at a college campus, but a lot of the times, as I mentioned here with a teacher, it's a lot of times the faculty, of course, and that's where the indoctrination comes from. Dr. Levkov's post came in response to a student letter that demanded a classmate accused of vandalizing the school with anti-Israel graffiti and bashed Jewish parents. It claimed the parents were intimidating them and suppressing ideas not in line with, quote, Zionist ideology. The students were replying to Jewish parents and alumni who demanded in their own letter that the $63,000 a year school protect their kids in light of anti-Semitic incidents following Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel. The Fieldston School's terror-supporting students have responded to the Jewish community's letter with a 5-page missive. They've been terrorizing Jewish students for years, forcing them into silence for fear that if they speak up, they'll be called racist. Enough is enough. Some of us have played the, quote, good Jew for too long. In their letter, the student also claimed that a vulnerable 16-year-old girl of color was being scapegoated over the Free Palestine graffiti on the school building. Well, this is an example, too. So that was the graffiti, but they shouldn't get in any trouble for the graffiti. I mean, that's what we learn, that there are no repercussions for what you do. That's what they're demanding anyway. They're demanding at colleges still being allowed to graduate, still getting their diploma. They demand no police interference. The student has been and continues to be blamed and villainized for an act of protest that she was not made aware would break any rules. So she did not realize, apparently, graffitiing the side of the building would be breaking the rules. Interesting. Students could not possibly have known what phrases and symbols are viewed as causing harm and why, the Ivy League hopefuls also declared. One Fieldstone insider doubted the kids wrote the letter themselves and suspected radical teachers or parents helped. There are no kids there that are smart enough to write that. It's all the jargon. This is just trickling in to other areas of life. Even Chuck Schumer booed during a speech at the Israeli parade. Video footage showed Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer being introduced to speak in front of a crowd of people who could be seen holding signs that say "Bring them home" and signs with photos of the hostages still held by Hamas. "Bring them home" was chanted numerous times as the crowd could be heard booing. So Chuck Schumer was met with boos while delivering a speech. Now, Schumer, who is Jewish, has received criticism after staying silent on the anti-Israel protests and encampments that were established on colleges and university campuses throughout the month of April and into early May. At the beginning of May, pro-Israeli protesters described Schumer as a traitor and called for him to resign after he expressed faith in Joe Biden starting to withhold artillery and weapons from Israel. In March, Schumer even called for Israel to hold new elections and get rid of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, if you recall, explaining that they had lost their way. Despite this, Schumer, along with Mike Johnson, Mitch McConnell, and Hakeem Jeffries, signed a letter inviting Benjamin Netanyahu to speak before a joint meeting of Congress. So that's a couple updates. I run a little late, and we're going to tie this in because we've seen, and we talked about it a lot last week, this appeasement towards Iran. So we're starting off with kind of international a little bit here. News where Joe Biden's love of Tehran, says the New York Post editorial board, why isn't this prompting an Iran-gate fury? You know, with tying it in with President Trump at the time, Russia. Well, we're going to get into that here in just a little bit. We're just getting started. Thank you for joining us. A couple waves coming in. I think it's going to be tough to beat last week. What did we hit? 38 waves, I think. Something crazy like that on Friday. But you'll have to see how we do. Stay with us for the full 2 hours. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's Hot Tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Attention, if you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and now have uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call now to see if you qualify. There's no fee unless we win your case.
More cars. Lower prices. More cars at lower prices. You've waited long enough. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at Simmons-Rockwell.com, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
What's up, guys? What I'm about to show you is going to change the way you shave your head forever.
You can shave your head in 90 seconds or less.
With no cuts or nicks. It's 100% waterproof.
It even works in the shower.
Introducing Remington's Balder Boss. With increased flex and 5 dual-track floating head design, get over 60% more head coverage for a faster, closer shave and skin-close results.
No nicks, no scrapes. Fit in the palm of my hand, and the results were amazing.
Shave in the shower or with any foam or gel. with Japanese-grade steel blades plow through the thickest of hair. Anytime, anywhere. There's even a pop-up trimmer to complete your perfect groom. Now, you can try the Remington Balder Boss in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. Complete with a 5-year limited warranty and 100% satisfaction guarantee. You can also get our ear, nose, and brow trimmer free. Just pay separate processing and handling.
Give it a try. You won't be disappointed.
Order your Balder.
And we are back. Our beautiful view. Yes, if you missed it on Friday, the roof camera is back. And we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. You're watching, frankly speaking. I really do appreciate it. We are going to talk about the Trump verdict. I'm sure you've seen by now that Trump was at a UFC fight on Saturday, receiving a warm welcome, of course, as he normally does in that situation. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, Hunter Biden's trial to begin, so plenty to get to. But I wanted to mention this. With all the troubling news about President Biden and his team's support for Iran, and we mentioned it last week, telling allies, hey, don't criticize Iran for growing their nuclear capabilities. We don't want to cause any tensions, any troubles before the November election. And he has a history of this. Him and the Obama administration have a history of this appeasement towards Iran, wanting to be their friends, and they, of course, will never be our friend. You can't call someone the great Satan and expect them to turn and change their mind because we're appeasing them. But I'll continue. You'd surely expect media outlets to be screaming Iran, 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 just as they harped on Russia, Russia, Russia in reporting on Donald Trump. Nope. It's been nothing but crickets. The latest, Republican lawmakers uncovered evidence suggesting Biden's special Iran envoy, Robert Malley, improperly shared sensitive or classified documents with Tehran. And I had mentioned that to you last week. Malley had his security clearance suddenly canceled last year, and the FBI launched a probe into whether he had mishandled classified documents. This is the guy, recall, who worked with and hired affiliates of the Iran Experts Initiative, a group Tehran used to push for its nuclear and national security agenda across the West. Good that Malley was placed on leave, but why exactly? What actually happened? What did Joe Biden know about it, and when did he know? It's very similar to that potential terrorism attack run-through at the Marine base where the media is quiet, the administration is quiet, because, again, at the end of the day, it's all about November. But don't inquiring minds want to know? Apparently not for Democrats or much of the media. By contrast, had Malley worked for Trump, Democrats would have already had Christopher Steele compiling a dossier on the dirt Iran has on Biden, and it would be wall-to-wall coverage. Add in the news that Team Biden has been trying to convince Britain and France not to censor Iran over its nuclear program, despite recent alarming advances. In Biden's attempt to strong-arm Israel not to retaliate after Iran launched more than 300 missiles and attack drones against it, directly from Iranian launch sites. Plus his own lame to non-existent retaliation against Iran when it used its proxies to attack United States soldiers. All that on top of Biden's waiving of some Iran sanctions and dropping enforcement of others, providing billions to the regime. What gives? Iran is not America's friend and won't be anytime soon. It's looking to dominate the entire Middle East through the use of force, mostly via its proxies. It's developing nukes, backing Russia's war on Ukraine, spreading terror, repressing its own citizens. All this, Biden, of course, silent. But when it comes to attacking Israel and criticizing Israel, seems very quick to do that, doesn't he? It wants to wipe out our close ally Israel, that meaning Iran. Its supreme leader, Ayatollah al-Khamenei, just praised U.S. college students protesting against the Jewish state's war for survival against Hamas. Yet Biden seems to be doing anything he can to protect, fund, and kowtow to Tehran. His team has revived and amplified the delusional Obama-era project of appeasing the Iranian regime in order to reform it. It's all enough to make you wonder whose side he's really on. But our media elite only ask such questions about leaders they despise. And we'll see a little bit of that despising of Trump here in just a little bit. I think there are some, and I'd like to get your opinion on this because I know we've had a lot of great back and forth on the Trump verdict. It does seem to me some Democrats are a little worried right now, saying, wait a minute, is this actually benefiting Trump? And if you see the fundraising, it absolutely is. We're going to talk about those fundraising numbers, but amazing the people that have stepped up out of the woodwork to donate to the former president. Before that, you may have seen a little bit of coverage of this. This is something we've been trying to bring to you before I take a break, and that is the NIH scientists, Dr. Fauci and others covering up in their emails so that you did not have a right to see what they were saying. We've got a few things on that because there is a House panel on that. We've also got a couple things about immigration if we have a chance. I do, after we talk about COVID, I want to jump into Hunter and then the Trump verdict. And then if we get a chance, we'll talk about immigration and some of the decisions by the Biden administration. So stay with us. I don't want to run too late. Keep those waves coming in. Keep those comments coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
Hi, I'm Aubrey. For over 40 years, the Blaze Alexander family dealerships have been making car buying easy, affordable, with respect for your time.
And we do that by treating all of our customers like family.
By making sure you get the lowest rates, biggest discounts, and most for your trade.
By providing clean, comfortable, and convenient service.
By offering the largest selection of new and pre-owned vehicles every day. Visit a Blaze Alexander family dealership,
where we're taking the deals the other guys won't.
Savings!
Discounts. Hands down, the best bargains.
At Ollie's, we've got brand name merchandise at up to 70% off the fancy store prices every day. And pass the savings along to you.
I never know what I'm gonna find.
It's like a one-stop shop.
Food, pet supplies,
housewares,
books,
toys.
I get to keep more money in my pocket.
Save up to 70% off the fancy stores every day.
Ollie! Good stuff, cheap!
Getting aerial video for a commercial used to be extremely expensive, but not anymore. WYDC TV Big Fox now offers the Twin Tiers amazing aerial video for your business. We do it with our state-of-the-art drone and commercially licensed aerial pilot. Beautiful HD aerial video and pictures custom-made for your commercial. Call or email now to advertise on Big Fox TV and let everyone see your business in a whole new way.
And we are back with Frankly Speaking. Thank you for joining us on this Monday morning edition here at 6:23. So during the pandemic, the American people started to feel that big government was a little too cozy with big pharma. Do you remember that time? Now we know just how close they were. New data from the National Institutes of Health reveals the agency and its scientists collected $710 million in royalties during the pandemic. These are payments made by private companies, like pharmaceuticals, to license medical innovations from government scientists. Almost all that cash, $690 million, went to the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, the sub-agency led by none other than Dr. Anthony Fauci and 260 of his scientists. Information about the vast private royalty complex is tightly held by NIH. Actually, Open the Books, which is a group was forced to sue to uncover the royalties paid during that amount of time. Now, the American people have one last crack at getting some candor from Fauci when he testifies today before the House Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic. He spent years scoffing at questions about potential conflicts of interest between COVID policymakers who relentlessly pushed vaccines and recipients of private royalties. Now he'll also need to account for bombshell emails sent by one of his deputies, which described in-house strategies to circumvent the Federal Freedom of Information Act. Fauci won't be able to misspell words to evade scrutiny or have folks physically courier messages. Just two of the Freedom of Information Act avoiding actions described by Dr. Morens, a key Fauci deputy. And remember, he said, well, it was a joke. Instead, cameras from around the world will be trained on Fauci, and he'll be answering for information he gave in a sworn deposition earlier this year. It's a chance to either come clean or further cement the public's perception of him and the NIH as secretive and self-interested. Yes, and remember at the time we were lectured or called crazy if we didn't follow the science. Now when we follow the science, we see how corrupt and questionable it was. Beyond the small cabal of scientists covering up discussions of the virus's origin, NIH has consistently threatened Freedom of Information Act requests like viral attacks of their own. No wonder then that were plaintiffs in 6 ongoing Freedom of Information Act cases against them. Characteristically, NIH is still redacting pieces of the data that would help us more easily connect therapeutics with their government-paid inventors. For example, they refuse to show us the amount of royalties paid to each individual scientist, so we still can't entirely follow the money. In the meantime, Senator Rand Paul has sponsored the Royalty Transparency Act, which sailed unanimously through the committee process and deserves a floor vote immediately. There's plenty Fauci could do in the meantime, too. He could indicate he supports bills like Paul's. He could call on NIH and CDC to voluntarily unmask the royalty payments. Then we could see whether the decisions have advanced the general welfare or their own. Fauci could also support fixes to the Freedom of Information Act law that create real consequences for those who violate it. At minimum, he must apologize for the utter contempt for Freedom of Information Act requests and the transparency war waged by his colleagues that now have been revealed in private communications. And isn't it funny, because when you look at those private communications, that was one of the things that was said, oh, don't worry, I'm not dumb enough to get caught. And that's exactly what he did. But that shows you a little bit of the arrogance. And we saw it at that time with Fauci and other scientists, as well as like a Cuomo, which I've got an update on Cuomo, by the way. Some more speculation that he could be running for mayor. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But that ego, that cockiness that we saw at that time, where it was follow the science. And that's, if you had any questions whatsoever, like where the virus originated from, if you had any questions about maybe being in lockdown for so long, you were deemed crazy, wanting to kill grandma with COVID. Now, the House COVID panel chair has warned of criminal consequences for cover-ups. Federal public health officials and others who have covered up information about the origins of COVID could face prosecution. That's what the chairman of a special House subcommittee investigating the outbreak tells the New York Post. And Dr. Fauci set to appear before that hearing today. We want the DOJ to weigh in. Hopefully they could do something honestly and fairly, Representative Brad Westrup from Ohio said. But at the same time, we can make criminal referrals, and I think we should. And he goes through and some of the things they'll be looking for, such as the failures of the U.S. pandemic response, the taxpayer-funded gain of research, and this ignoring of the Freedom of Information Act request. The work they were doing was risky, and you can see through reverse engineering it was capable of creating something like COVID-19. I started looking at this when we were in lockdown in 2020 through the House Intelligence Committee and was creating what this was all about, what gain-of-function research was about. And it kind of frightened me as far as bioweapons, and that's a new threat going into the future, Westrup said, who is a doctor and retired U.S. Army colonel. And then he talks about Dr. Morens and hiding information, saying, I'm not going to get caught. But he did do that, and we have the proof of that now, and he talks about how he did it, of more than the 30,000 records Morens handed over. When asked whether Fauci's two-day transcribed interview from January with the COVID subcommittee also included false claims about not being involved in EcoHealth's funding of gain-of-research function research, Westrup would only say, somebody's not telling the truth. Fauci, 83, said at the time he did not recall any specific interaction with that group and denied having back-and-forth discussions with EcoHealth's president. But the Morens emails reveal the ex-Biden White House medical advisor expressing concern about the grant, and I'm not going to go through all that specifics, but this is a big day. Hopefully something will come. It does look as if someone's not telling the truth, and they were so arrogant that they thought they'd never get caught. Thought they could do what they want when they want because they were the smartest people in the room. You were dependent on Dr. Fauci's guidance, on his orders during the time in their mind. And they had a really good thing going for them, which was if you criticized them, you were deemed conspiratorial, you were deemed crazy, or worse, you wanted to kill grandma by spreading the virus. Now, here we got a comment here. Glad the news on Fauci is finally coming out. Despicable evil man. Yeah, there was something about him right from the beginning that I think rubbed a lot of us the wrong way. But again, I never liked this idea that someone, especially in government, is too big to have to answer questions. That his word was really gospel. And if you recall, when then President Trump criticized it at all, he was attacked as well, because it was the worst thing in the world for you not to follow the science. So we'll be watching that closely. I did want to highlight, and I'll mention this in the 7 o'clock hour as well, I will not be in tomorrow, so we won't be able to talk about it tomorrow. We'll talk about it on Wednesday. I'm taking the morning off, so you'll have a best of, frankly speaking, tomorrow. Thank you for understanding. So this is going to be interesting. Hunter Biden, first we learned, when was this? Yesterday? This morning, excuse me. The federal judge overseeing Hunter Biden's gun trial dealt his defense 2 setbacks on Sunday on the eve of jury selection by blocking one of his expert witnesses and excluding a key piece of evidence the president's son had hoped to use. This is going to be interesting, this case, because you've got to remember, they had an easy thing going. They didn't have to have this case, but to kind of point to what we were talking about with Fauci, they got so cocky, so big, too big for their britches, and they pushed it just a little bit too far. And now, because of that brave judge, Hunter is forced to stand trial. The ruling from Judge Mary Ellen Norica resolves some of the sticking points that were still simmering before the trial begins today. Taken together, these decisions could make a tough case for Hunter Biden even more challenging to win. President Joe Biden's son has pleaded not guilty to illegally buying and owning a gun while abusing illicit drugs. Norica granted a request from special counsel David Wise to block one of Hunter Biden's expert witnesses from testifying. The defense had lined up a Columbia University-based psychiatrist who would have tried to poke holes in prosecutors' assertions that Hunter Biden knew he was an addict in 2018 when he bought the gun and led to his indictment. So he didn't know he was an addict. Okay, that's an interesting argument to make. When you hear Columbia University now, doesn't it? It does kind of have a stigma, doesn't it? After all these protests. Anyway, the inadequacy of defendant's expert disclosure for Dr. Ion leaves the government in the dark as to what his options about the facts of this case will be, thus rendering the government unable to prepare for trial, Norica wrote. The judge also blocked Hunter Biden's lawyer from using what they thought was a key piece of evidence, an altered version of the federal firearms form he filled out when he bought the gun in 2018 that was tweaked in 2021 by the gun store employees. Hunter Biden's lawyer recently argued in court that they wanted to use a doctored form to undermine the credibility of the employees who are slated to testify on behalf of the prosecutors. They also claimed it showed prosecutors were politically biased. Okay, that's a little ironic, isn't it? Any probative value is substantially outweighed by a danger of unfair prejudice, confusion of issues, and misleading the jury, she wrote. Further adding that any attempts by the defense to use the altered form to demonstrate the employee's alleged political bias would have been unduly prejudicial and invites jury nullification. We've got a little bit more on this if you'd like to weigh in. Do you think it's going to be a fair trial? I don't mean in the sense of we knew it wasn't a fair trial for Trump in a biased way. In this case, is the fix in? We know that President Biden went and visited one of the witnesses just the other day. Questionable there. So what do you think of the trial as it starts today? I think it'll be a little interesting. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about it when we come back. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
I'm Mary Unkert. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
What do you do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
Order call 1-800-970-9843. That's 1-800-970-9843, or go to getbullseyepro.com. And we are back. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. This comment from a viewer. Unfortunately, the Bidens are as untouchable as the Clintons. It does seem that way. As another trial begins, this one of Biden's son. And according to Stephen Collinson from CNN, it will deepen the election's legal entanglements. 4 days after Donald Trump was convicted on 34 counts, President Joe Biden's son Hunter will be called to answer for a federal gun charge. The trial promises to be a moment of searing personal anguish for the president and comes as he's seeking to find a political opening after weeks of coverage of Trump's case. Later this week, the president is expected to issue a sweeping executive order that would dramatically limit migrants' abilities to seek asylum at the southern border. The move, a pivotal moment of Biden's term and the campaign, will be seen as an effort to blunt Trump's advantage on an issue that is foundation of his political career. But it could also risk angering progressive voters who are vital to the president's hope of victory in November, but have soured on some of his policies, including his support for Israel. Well, this is interesting. So after 3.5 years of saying he can't do anything, now he's doing something, and that's supposed to be a signal that he's tough on immigration. Now, I understand their fear. Looking at the polls, it's the voters' number one concern. And when you look at some of these numbers, well, let's jump around. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Hunter, but just to tie it in with that, Biden administration offers mass amnesty to migrants as it quietly terminates 350,000 asylum cases. While the Biden administration is attempting to look like it's getting tough on the border, behind the scenes, it's operating a program of a mass amnesty for migrants, is what the New York Post is revealing. Data shows that since 2022, more than 350,000 asylum cases filed by migrants have been closed by the U.S. government if the applicants don't have a criminal record or otherwise not deemed a threat to the country. This means that while migrants are not granted or denied asylum, their cases are terminated without a decision on the merits of their asylum claim. They are removed from the legal system and no longer required to check in with authorities. As Miranda, this is the New York Post editorial board says, for all the president's talk about trying to address the border crisis, and obviously we knew he would do something before November because it is such a political issue, and that's why taking some of the heat off the Hunter Biden trial maybe why he decided to push this executive order now. But the Post keeps discovering new ways he's encouraging the tide of illegal migrants. The Post's Jenny Terr reports the Biden team has quietly closed more than 350,000 asylum cases over the last 2.5 years. I mentioned that. Don Barrett of the Center for Immigration Studies found that Biden has created at least 8 different programs that allow 3.3 million migrants, most of the illegal entrants, to get work permits, and running the law that supposedly requires a half-year wait before even applying for the right to work legally, with another 1.4 million cases in the pipeline. It's hard to say which is more outrageous. On one hand, he's pretending to resolve dubious asylum claims while really just wiping them off the record book. On the other, he's handing working permits to illegal migrants he shouldn't even be letting in. Per Transactional Record Access Clearinghouse data reviewed by the Post, the Wipe the Record Clean program is accelerating since ICE Deputy General Counsel Carrie Doyle ordered a new approach in 2022. Just 4,700 people saw their cases dismissed back in 2020. Then 102,550 in 2022, more than 10 times the 2014 level. It was 149,000 the next year, and 2024 is set to pass that level when the fiscal year ends September 30th. Dismissed cases, though technically still subject to deportation, get cut loose, no longer monitored by ICE or anyone. It's as if you enter the country without having been caught, notes immigration attorney Hector Korgoff. The number of asylum cases okayed is also way up under Biden to the average of 40% approval, with most of the rest dismissed with less than a quarter ordered to leave. A few of the fast-track work permits make some sense for Afghan allies allowed in after Biden handed their country to the Taliban, and for Ukrainians temporarily fleeing the Russian invasion. But most go to illegal migrants from Colombia, Cuba, Ecuador, El Salvador, etc. Bottom line, Biden continues to deny that the border crisis is his fault. As cities across America are overwhelmed by the unending flood of illegal migrants, even as he's making it far easier for illegal migrants to enter, to stay without being tracked, and to even work legally. The White House knows the issue is killing Biden in the polls, but keeps working to reward as many border jumpers as it can. Yet they keep insisting Donald Trump is the great threat to our democracy. We heard some of that rhetoric over the weekend, which we're going to get to. I know I kind of jumped from Hunter Biden to that, but they do tie in together. He's trying to take some of the heat away. That is Joe Biden trying to take some of the heat and some of the media attention away from Hunter Biden by issuing a sweeping executive order, trying to look tough on immigration. Is it too little, too late? Do you think people will buy into it? Or do you think progressives will be mad at this decision and continue to leave him in droves? Now, Democrats will also seek this week to highlight that what they warn are extreme right-wing policies on abortion as the heat of the campaign ratchets up ahead of the first presidential debate. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's coming up in less than a month. Wow. Biden's effort to seize the initiative in a too-close-to-call campaign will come as the reverberations multiply over the first conviction of a former president and major party nominee. Republicans have mostly closed rank around Trump, claiming that he is a victim of weaponized justice, and the former president's team and the Republican National Committee are boasting about what they say is a $70 million fundraising windfall following the verdict. Democrats are meanwhile debating how to leverage Trump's conviction, with some calling for a sharper effort to blast Biden's foe as a convicted felon. And I think that's funny, calling for him to do that. That's all the media and all the left has done. Convicted felon. Donald Trump. You're going to hear convicted felon until November. So much you're going to be sick of it, if you're not sick of it already. But a CBS poll released yesterday showed that Americans believe 57-43 that the Manhattan jury reached the right verdict. And in a new ABC poll, Americans say by a roughly 2-to-1 margin that the verdict was right. However, views of Trump were barely changed from before the jury's decision. That's troubling. Now, as we've always said on this program, polls can be easily manipulated. But do you buy that the American people feel that that was the right decision? Just out of curiosity. So now we're going to see a lot of attacks on, convicted felon Trump. They're going to talk about abortion. Yeah, it's getting campaign season. It's been moved up. Normally really goes into crazy mode after Labor Day. In this case, because the president, Biden, asked for the debate early, it's kicking up into high gear a little bit earlier on. We're going to talk a little bit more about Hunter Biden. I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but we do have to take a short break, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselsen's Hot Tub. Hesselsen's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselsen's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
Attention, if you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and now have uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call now to see if you qualify. There's no fee unless we win your case.
Let's get it.
It's harder, dude.
Name that tune. This show where singing along is encouraged.
Name that tune.
I can name that tune in one note.
We got ourselves a competition.
I hope you're buckled up. Name that tune.
Tonight. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselsen studio. Boy, this show's going quick, isn't it? It's already a quarter of, and we haven't even talked about the Trump verdict yet. But Hakeem Jeffries is saying that Hunter Biden has done nothing wrong. Now, I'm not sure, even at face value, you can say that. He was on NBC's Meet the Press. He backed up Biden for his comments regarding the investigation into his son last year when asked if it was appropriate for the president to weigh in on the case at the time. President Biden commented as a loving father, as I would hope any loving father would do. Hunter Biden, of course, is entitled, as was Donald Trump, to the presumption of innocence and to a trial by a jury of his peers. And this Justice Department is going to proceed in that fashion, present the facts and the law, and then we'll all have to wait for a determination that is made by a jury as to Hunter Biden's guilt or innocence. Biden said last year that Hunter Biden had done nothing wrong in connection to a multi-year investigation into his son. His comments came before his son was indicted on tax and gun charges last year. So not really saying it. Hakeem Jeffries not saying that Biden had done nothing wrong, but defends Biden in saying that his son did nothing wrong. Do you feel that the jury will find Hunter Biden guilty? I don't. Everything's become so political. Here's a good comment from a viewer. Any poll that is conducted by the legacy media has no credibility at all. Its only purpose is to sway voters. I would tend to agree. I don't, especially as it nears November, I do not believe polling. But Miranda Devine said the president flew into Wilmington, Delaware on Sunday night, where his 54-year-old son's felony gun trial begins on Monday, and will spend the whole day there with no official duties. Joe Biden's looming presence in the strange small city leaves nobody in doubt of the message he is sending to Delaware Special Counsel David Wise, to the prosecutor, to the judge, and the jury pool being chosen Monday. You mess with my son, you mess with me. It's all very subtle in a flagrant way, much like Joe's impromptu visit to Haley Biden, the widow of Beau and former lover of Hunter, just 9 days before his son's trial, at which she is a star witness for the prosecution. Yeah, imagine if that was Trump. Imagine if Trump had met with Cohen a few days before the trial. But I'll continue. It was Haley who threw Hunter's new handgun in a trash can in October of 2018 out of concern for his drug-addled mental state, creating a ticking legal time bomb that would propel him into court 6 years later. It was Haley who found drugs and drug paraphernalia in his truck. Haley even shared his crack addiction for a time amid multiple drug rehab efforts. In a trial based on the allegation that Hunter lied at the gun shop's federal background form, when he checked no to the question, are you an unlawful user of or addicted to various narcotic drugs? Haley's understanding of his drug use will be key. Hunter's defense is that day he bought the gun was a rare day of sobriety and a period during which he admitted in his memoirs that, quote, I was smoking crack every 15 minutes. The potential for witness tampering in Joe's late-night visit to Hallie was obvious and must have caused conniptions for the prosecutors, Wise's towering deputy Leo Wise and Derek Hines. Yet again, we are commended to take Joe's word as a Biden that nothing untoward went on. Yeah, I was just visiting because it had been wasn't even the exact date, 9 years since Beau had passed, something like that. But we're supposed to just take him at his word. Nothing happened there. Very much like we talked about last week, the tarmac conversation, the airplane conversation with Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton. Joe's ever-present suite of family tragedies was offered to explain the visit. In this case, the upcoming anniversary of Beau Biden's death. Not the previous anniversaries had occasioned a high-profile presidential late-night visit. So none of the other anniversaries, but that 9-year anniversary got a visit from the president. Nor did Joe and Hallie need to discuss the trial in their 15-minute private meeting. The president's mere unscheduled presence said it all. As part of the wise guy messaging, Hunter's sightings alongside with his father have accelerated the last 2 weeks. There was Hunter at the White House, wagging his finger at staff, or attending an event in the Rose Garden. Here he was, getting on and off Marine One and Air Force One with his father, flying for long weekends from Washington to Wilmington. On Saturday morning came a new iteration. Hunter riding a bike with Dad, sticking close behind as they passed the waiting media. Perhaps the most flagrant of all was on May 22nd at a state dinner for the president of Kenya, where, yet again, the indicted first son rubbed shoulders with Attorney General Merrick Garland. A dozen Biden family members and hanger-ons also attended, including Hunter's 3 daughters and a niece, plus boyfriends and a husband. In the second state dinner, Merrick Garland had attended with Hunter at a crucial moment in the first son's legal odyssey. This is interesting. We don't have time to get to all of it, but this is from Miranda Devine. In fact, he showed up at the Caleb J. Boggs Courthouse in Wilmington on Monday to eyeball District Judge Norika and watch the jurors being sworn in. His defenders in the media would fall over themselves to excuse him, saying he is just there to support his surviving son. Ethics takes a back seat in the plausible deniability of Joe's everlasting tragedies. In the shadow of the Trump conviction, Hunter's trial takes an outsized status politically, even though the charges are the only ones from the comprised 5-year criminal investigation that don't touch on Joe. By contrast, Hunter's California tax trial in September is high risk for Joe, as it will encompass 2014 and 2015, during which Hunter was earning $1 million from Burisma, and his VP father had the Ukrainian prosecutor who was investigating the corrupt energy company fired. But if Hunter is acquitted in the gun trial in Delaware, Joe will make a neat talking point to throw at Trump at their first debate. My son was tried in the very system you claim is weaponized against you. Unlike you, a jury found him not guilty. Hunter's pricey lawyer, Abe Lowell, is a master of jury whispering, so it's possible that Hunter gets off, even given the poor odds for defendants in federal trials. Yeah, I don't have any... Listen, I think a lot of us lost faith, and I don't want to say we're jaded, but lost faith in the judicial system because of that decision last week. So no, I don't have any... I'm not going to make any predictions about what's going to happen, but I don't really see anything serious happening to Hunter Biden. But we've got to take another short break, the last break of this hour. Man, we are moving fast. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselsen's Hot Tub. Hesselsen's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselsen's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
Attention, this is an important message for firefighters, members of the military, and airport workers. For decades, first responders and firefighters at military bases and airports used a chemical-based foam to fight fires. Studies have shown that chemicals used to make aqueous film-forming foam, or AFFF, are highly toxic to humans and have been associated with several types of cancer. If you or someone you know was diagnosed with any of those cancers, call now for a free case review.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
And we are back. Look at that beautiful view of historic Market Street of the Gaffer District as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here in Corning. I mentioned this quickly at the top of the hour, and before we wrap up, I thought I'd give you a little more information. Cuomo is amping up his rhetoric, taking aim at New York City and the New York City problems. Interesting timing, as some have been whispering behind the scenes that he may be looking to run for mayor. If anyone doubted that former Governor Andrew Cuomo is getting direct aim at Mayor Adams, is taking direct aim at Mayor Adams, an upcoming radio show appearance might dispel that notion. Cuomo offered some advice to Adams and his successor, Governor Hochul, saying leaders need to show people progress and further fueling speculation that he's considering a run at mayor, governor, or possibly both. I mean, with his ego, he's not going to go away, folks. And he still thinks, and maybe he's right in New York City, that people love him, that he'll get reelected or elected for mayor, I should say. During this interview, the host, Greg Floyd, asked Cuomo what he would do differently if he were acting as mayor or governor, opening a door the former governor charged through, taking aim at crime, homelessness, and illegal weed shops, issuing issues that have become signature points of focus for the Adams administration. The political buzz has been that Cuomo could only run for mayor if Adams decided not to, but his latest broadside marks the sharpest criticism of the mayor's track record to date. Do something about the homelessness, or the homeless who are dangerous and who are on the street. Close those pot shops tomorrow. Make a real commitment to affordable housing. Not 100 units here, 200 units there, which is all they're doing. But say, we're going to build more affordable housing than any city in the United States. You have to make things happen. Make government work. Those words, make things happen, echoed a favorite catchphrase of the mayor and his mantra of get stuff done. That's what Adams would say. Now, Adams' spokesperson said crime is down and jobs are up. We also shut down over 200 illegal cannabis shops and issued over $17 million in penalties as part of Operation Padlock to Protect in the last few weeks alone. Not only making New Yorkers safer, but helping to make sure New Yorkers feel safer too, said the mayor. So what do you think? Now, Hochul's camp didn't respond. I'm wondering, boy, I think it's safe to say we know he's not going to go away. And I don't see him being like a Spitzer who just wants to go for comptroller. He's going to want to do something where he gets a lot of attention on him. Back to the days of the pandemic when he was holding his news conferences and he was a star. He wants that back. He's got that taste of fame. Some have even speculated maybe he runs for president. Maybe. Boy, if you think about it, though, during the pandemic, there was talks of him, Biden stepping down and Cuomo replacing him. Imagine how that would have went. But do you think he's going to run for mayor? Do you think he's going to run for governor? Do you think he's just going to give these interviews and keep criticizing politicians? I'd love to hear from you. But we are out of time for this hour. Out of time for this hour. That sounded strange. We've got 1 hour left together, so keep those waves, those comments coming in. We've got plenty to talk about. We're going to talk about the Trump verdict when we come back. Always reading your messages. If you have anything you'd like to pass along, it is Monday morning. I know we're getting the cobwebs out. It's good to be here. And we had such fun on Friday. 38 waves on Friday. We had such fun, such great conversation. Let's keep it going. And please stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us.
Our water's better tasting. It's better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
If you've regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking. Welcome. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We do not have a Steuben Senior Services Fund interview because I knew we had so much to catch up on. But I do want to always thank Steuben Senior Services Fund for being a part of the program. We received this comment from a viewer. We as viewers are protesting with our TV remotes by choosing to get honest political news from Frankly Speaking. We'll say, darn the legacy media. I'm sticking on the Trump train with our conductor, Frank Acom. Well, thank you for the comments. Let's speak about Trump here for just a moment, shall we? And that is very nice of you to say. Kind. Thank you. And I do think there are a lot of people protesting. And the polls speak to that. Look at the polls that they're throwing around suggesting that that was a fair trial. But do you think Trump is going to get jail time? You've heard my prediction. I think it'll probably be like a house arrest scenario. So Merkin, whatever, can make it look like he's not completely biased, but at the same time really hinder what Trump can do when it comes to the political campaigning. Don't think the political games are done just because Alvin Bragg and Judge Merkin have engineered a kangaroo court conviction of Trump. Sentencing is still ahead, and conveniently for anti-Trumpers, Merchant set that hearing for July 11th, just 4 days before the Republican convention opens. That gives him a perfect time to look at the polls and see if President Biden needs yet more help. If Trump's current narrow lead increases these next 6 weeks, bet on McCann to demand hard time. Yes, legal experts say it's beyond rare for a judge to send a first offender convicted of a nonviolent crime to prison, but this judge has proven himself more than willing to burst far past the boundaries of decency where Trump is concerned. It's no secret that the whole dog and pony show was politically driven. Not only did Bragg, the prosecutor who usually hates prosecuting, have to twist the case into pretzels in order to bring felony charges, he would have brought charges at all had his target's last name not been Trump. Meanwhile, Mercan, who donated to Biden's campaign, didn't bother to hide his bias throughout the trial. He let the prosecution run wild while kneecapping the defense, excluding testimony that would have eviscerated the prosecution's case, slapped the ex-president with a gag order, and ripped into Trump's lawyer and even a defense witness for next to nothing. Why would he refrain from an unprecedented punishment, especially if the verdict alone isn't slowing Trump's momentum? And I think that's a good point. I mean, I don't think anything is off the table when you're talking about McCann. I don't think, at the end of the day, it's all about getting Trump. I don't think he cares about what his legacy will be. And in his defense, his legacy would only be increased in his social circle if he were to do that. The Donald is now leading Biden in swing states and narrowing the gap in even deep blue states like New York, which is just wild to think about. What was he within 7? Biden leading by 7 points, I believe it was, in New York, folks. If he's polling even better come July 11th, McCann's fellow Democratic hacks will be in full panic, demanding he, quote, save the country. Save the country from democracy. The 4 criminal cases brought against Trump have one thing in common. They're meant to drag him into the mud, keep him off the campaign trail, and bolster our disaster of a president. Heck, keeping Biden in office is vital to keeping endless free money coming from Washington. Ordering Trump behind bars is no more outrageous than all the other violations of norms in this case, and Democrats, especially in New York, have already proved they care about nothing more than keeping power. Yeah, nothing is off limits. So we talked about this on Friday. At the end of the day, it's all about getting that victory. And they don't care what, I know they lecture us about threat to democracy. They don't really care what kind of threat to democracy and what precedent. And I know we talked about this so much on Friday, but what precedent this is now set. And the former president was talking about that over the weekend, saying, well, who's next? Right now, they say it was only going to be Trump. Even Fareed Zakari saying this case would not have been brought if it weren't for Trump. So no, it's just Trump. And you don't think if this is successful, now they can call him a convicted felon, you don't think they wouldn't do this with Nikki Haley? That they wouldn't do this with, fill-in-the-blank Republican? The precedent has been set. I think the judge, this is from a viewer, is going to go for shock and awe by sending him to jail. We, as virtual political prisoners, need to go and protest. I don't know. I guess it all depends. To your other point, I don't know. Well, time will tell on whether or not there is jail time or not. But I'm surprised. I have been kind of surprised there hasn't been more rallies. But it'll be interesting when Trump holds rallies what they look like. Now, what would a Trump prison term look like? You know who they asked? You know who inside with Jen Psaki, the former press secretary? Again, remember, Ronna McDaniels can't work for NBC because she one time worked with Trump. But Jen Psaki, totally fine. And she asked none other than FBI Director James Comey, former FBI Director James Comey, what a Trump prison term would look like. He said, incarceration is obviously doable. So Psaki said, do you agree that it would be difficult or nearly impossible for the law enforcement institutions to put him in an actual jail? No, Comey said. They would just put him in a double wide, somewhere out near the fence, out in the grass, and he would eat there. He'd shower there. He'd exercise there. He'd be away from general population, but it's obviously doable. Still, Comey, who correctly forecast a guilty verdict against Trump days before it was rendered, isn't convinced the former president will end up behind jail. Do you think he's going to be wearing an ankle bracelet or be in jail after the sentencing, Psaki said? Well, it seems unlikely. But I've never seen a defendant beg for it more by attacking the judge, attacking the jury, attacking the witnesses. One of the key things in assessing what sentence is appropriate, a judge looks at, so are you sorry for what you did or are you respecting the system? This defendant is running the other way. So there you go. According to Comey, you've got to take into consideration how Trump has acted since the guilty verdict, and because he had the audacity to call it for what it is, maybe he'll be looking at jail time. I would not put it away from Merchant to go for jail time. I personally think it's going to be a house arrest, but that doesn't mean it's just kind of like the guilty verdict. People said, were you shocked? Were you stunned? No. And I don't think I'd be shocked or stunned if they said he's getting jail time. I think the big problem with jail time and this, I think Merkin knows that the optics of that would look so bad. That's why he'll walk it back and say, I'm not going to give you jail time, but I will give you house arrest. And then he can look as if he's fair. Stormy Daniels gave an interview over the weekend. I'm not going to go through much of that. But she said Donald Trump has lost touch with reality. I think he should be sentenced to jail and some community service working for the less fortunate or being the volunteer punching bag at a woman's shelter. He is completely and utterly out of touch with reality. She then said, I don't know what the sentencing could be or what Trump will even understand. It's like when you have a child and sometimes you take the electronics away from them. But if your child is very artistic, they don't care. They'll go color their coloring books. And then you have another child that they don't want to go outside. You got to ground them or take away electronics or don't let them have dessert. You have to find the punishment that not just matches the crime, but is fair and just and that impacts that particular person. Who knows what that is with Trump? Okay. So what are your predictions? I would love to know what you think will ultimately happen when McCann makes his decision. And yes, again, I think it's worth highlighting that he set the sentencing date 4 days before the Republican National Convention. Again, everything they can to disrupt this campaign. Having Stormy Daniels testify and getting extremely graphic was okay because that humiliated Trump. Nothing is off limits. So that's why I'm slowly being convinced by many that it could be jail time, even though I do believe it's going to be house arrest. But nothing is off limits. And they think the benefits outweigh any kind of negatives that come from this. But they don't care about the precedent that has now been set. They don't care that this will be used because they're the ones using it. But I think it was Trump who said over the weekend, well, what if we do this, what if I get Biden? I'm paraphrasing. I can't remember exactly how he said it. But the same idea that this is a slippery slope, a very dangerous slippery slope, and I think a very real threat to democracy. So Adam Schiff agreeing with James Comey. Yes, you remember Adam Schiff. He's running for Senate, if you're not aware. He was on CNN's State of the Union. He said, I think, Trump said over the weekend, what if they throw you in jail, right? And he said, I think it would be tough for the public to take. You know, at a certain point, there is a breaking point. So he said that over the weekend, and they asked Adam Schiff, Representative Adam Schiff, about this. Guest host Casey Hunt said, consider that the sentencing is likely to occur just days before the start of the convention and months before he's to be the Republican nominee in November. Do you think it would be dangerous for the country if Donald Trump were sentenced to jail? I bet you never guess what Adam Schiff had to say. No, I don't think it'll be dangerous for the country. And we have seen Trump urge mass protests outside the courthouse that never materialized. But nevertheless, this is, I think, what Donald Trump is aiming for. This is essentially his threat, that if he gets jail time, that he's going to encourage his supporters to rise up. And we saw the very deadly results of that on January 6th. So I don't think the public is going to respond to that call. I hope we learn something from that awful experience of January 6th. It's very clear, again, this is Adam Schiff, if you're just joining me. It's very clear that Donald Trump has suggested here. This is something I think that the judge needs to take into consideration. Also, not to be intimidated by that threat, but as further evidence, this defendant not only doesn't accept responsibility, but as willing to endangering people, just as Trump's willing to violate the gag order and potentially endanger witnesses or jurors or the judge himself or family members. That's something that the judge ought to be considering. So they're hoping beyond hope that he goes to jail. They don't realize the repercussions of that. They don't realize that maybe it plays in Trump's benefit. I mean, look at the fundraising dollars that he's raised since that verdict came through. Adam Schiff also said that the Biden campaign should go after Trump as a convicted felon. First of all, why is Adam Schiff some expert now? How many times was he caught lying? But he doesn't think the Biden administration is going to go after him as a convicted felon. We've already seen it. Convicted felon Donald Trump. It's been everywhere. So Hunt said, should President Biden be leaning more into his message of Donald Trump being a convicted felon? Schiff said, I think for the president, there's a time and a place for each argument. I think on the day of the conviction, the day thereafter, I can understand the president staying above the fray and demonstrating his respect and expressing his respect for the jury system. But I think the president should be leaning into this going forward. His competitor is a convicted felon, and you can only imagine if the situation were reversed. They would be going after Joe Biden with a vengeance. They're making those false claims about Joe Biden regardless. So I think not only the president, but Democrats need to be making the case forcefully to the American people. You want the country run properly? You don't want a convicted felon to turn the Oval Office and federal government into some kind of a racketeering operation. I think that's a powerful case to make, and certainly one supported by the verdict here. So in case you weren't aware, Adam Schiff believes that Democrats should bring up the fact that Donald Trump is a convicted felon. Well, thank you for the words of advice from Adam Schiff. I'm sure they'll listen. I'm sure they weren't waiting for your go-ahead, as we've seen by the mainstream media. Oh, my goodness, I got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Was your premature baby fed a cow's milk baby formula such as Similac or Enfamil? If so, your child may be entitled to significant financial compensation. Evidence shows that cow's milk formulas increase the risk of NEC in premature babies, causing severe harm and even death. If your child was born premature and suffers from NEC, intestinal perforations, sepsis, cerebral palsy, or died as a result, you may have the right to sue for significant financial compensation. Call now for a free case review.
Put confidence, adventure, and accomplishment firmly in your hands with the Polaris Sportsman lineup. Get the most out of every day, pull off the toughest hauls, and keep charging on.
Ithaca Recreation Sports, Route 13 in Newfield. Get outside and ride.
We live in an area full of beautiful destinations. Breathtaking mountains, rivers, trails, and waterfalls. Often hidden gems just waiting to be discovered. We would like to fuel your discovery this summer. Use our Quick Fill app to navigate to your next adventure and enter to win in our Fueling Discovery Summer Giveaway. No matter where, we'll get you there and proudly fuel the drive.
Bathroom of your dreams is only a phone call away with BCI Bath and Shower. We can make your ordinary bath and shower extraordinary. This is not a cookie cutter design. This is a complete custom build that will fit your every need. It's never been easier or more affordable than right now to get the bathroom of your dreams. We have the best monthly programs in the industry with payments as low as $99 per month or no payments, no interest for 18 months with approved credit. The hardest part of your new bathroom is gutting and building the tub and shower. If your bathing area is old, there could be damage behind the walls and possible mold and mildew, which can be a serious safety issue. At BCI, we don't cover a problem, we fix it. Call now to get a never clean glass treated door with the no-track system at half off for the first 50 callers. Factory trained, certified installers made in the USA and discounts for seniors and military. Call 800-704-1798. That's 800-704-1798.
In a game of few words, Urkel, glasses, nerd. It pays to know your nerds. If you guys didn't get nerd with me sitting up here on this show, 25 words or less.
Weeknights at 5 and...
And we are back. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on WYDC TV Big Fox. A couple of comments from viewers. Adam Schiff, the guy who lied to Congress and the American people, yet remains in Congress. Yep, that Adam Schiff. He's now running for Senate against Steve Garvey. Yes, how many times did he get caught lying? He's, well, what did Trump used to call him? Pencil neck? Was that it? Another comment from a viewer. By persecuting a candidate with over 50% of the population in support of, they're driving a wedge between the two parties that may take decades to repair. I don't know if they'll ever repair. I think, and this is what really concerns me, they've set this precedent that it's okay to weaponize the justice system against your political opponent. As a matter of fact, when Donald Trump Jr., who was he? Oh, he was congratulating El Salvador's president. And he posted a video on TikTok showing the two men standing together. And Donald Trump Jr. congratulating, and the president, El Salvador's president is Nayib Bukele, congratulating him on an amazing accomplishment. He said, "Congratulations on winning, and you accomplished it all without having to jail your political opponents." With which Bukele jokingly responded, "We don't jail the opposition." I mean, it's really where we are at, and I think the president is a scary precedent for this country. I don't think this divide will be repaired anytime soon. And as I said, I just think where this is headed in the future is troubling for the country. Now, Maxine Waters, Representative Maxine Waters, was on MSNBC's The Saturday Show. She said that Donald Trump's rhetoric on revenge was so divisive that she worried that it would start a civil war. Jonathan Capehart said, "Congresswoman Waters, your name has been invoked several times. We will give you the last word. What do you think?" Waters said, "Let me say, when I tweeted about Trump talking about the Constitution, I basically said in my tweet that he had disregarded the Constitution. He doesn't have any respect for the Constitution. I got over 1 million hits on that. I think the American people see through him, and they will be guarded and how they deal with the election. Let me just say this. I am worried that he is so divisive and that he is talking about retribution and about revenge, and I think that is dangerous. He has even mentioned civil war, saying there will be bloodshed. I will spend some time with the criminal justice system, asking them, tell us what's going on with the domestic terrorists. Are they preparing a civil war against us? Should we be concerned? What is he doing with this divisive language? It is dangerous. It's not just that he is a criminal. This is a man who disrespects the Constitution and democracy, and we'll have to figure out what they are doing as domestic terrorists try to take over our government on January 6th. How far is that going to go? Are they going to be attacking?" Talk about rhetoric. All right, I'm reading you all the comments from this. So apparently Trump being upset that he was found guilty is just too far. Him commenting about what looks like a rigged case, that was just, well, it's going to, according to Maxine Waters, perhaps start a civil war, and she's going to look into and ask about domestic terrorists and what they're working on behind the scenes, I guess. The Associated Press says that Trump's attack on U.S. justice system after the guilty verdict encourages Putin's and other autocrats. Isn't this amazing? You know, the media never talks about Biden encouraging Iran. You never see this type of language used for a Democrat president, only when it comes to Republicans, that this is encouraging Putin. Now, us withdrawing from Afghanistan, our weak response for our ally in Israel, all these things, what kind of message does that send to Putin? After his historic guilty verdict in the hush money case, Donald Trump attacked the U.S. criminal justice system, making unfounded claims of a rigged trial that echoed remarks from the Kremlin. If they can do this to me, they can do this to anyone, Trump said on Friday. Thousands of miles away, Russian President Vladimir Putin was probably rubbing his hands with glee, said Fiona Hill, a former senior White House national security advisor to 3 U.S. presidents, including Trump. Hill and other analysts say Trump's attacks could be useful to Putin and other autocrats as they look to boost their standing among their own citizens, potentially sway the upcoming U.S. presidential election in which Trump is the presumptive Republican nominee, and undermine the United States' global influence. Some autocrat countries reacted swiftly in support of Trump. Moscow agreed with Trump's assessment of Thursday's verdict, calling it the elimination of political rivals by all possible legal or illegal means. In September, Putin said the prosecution of Trump was political revenge that shows the rottenness of the American political system. After the verdict, Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban called Trump a man of honor and urged him to keep on fighting. China's state-owned Global Times newspaper suggested Trump's conviction adds to the farcical nature of this year's U.S. presidential election, adding that it will aggravate political extremists and end in more chaos and social unrest. So, according to the Associated Press, Putin is happy with Trump's rigged comments on trials. All right. We've got more on this. So keep those comments coming in. What do you think? I know there's been a lot of talk about this over the weekend. We've got a couple other opinion pieces on it. We're going to jump around a little bit. I think I have a few things at the end here on New York. A couple things here about Trump. We're moving along. This show's going fast this morning. Thank you to everybody who has been joining us. I know we talked a lot about this on Friday, but I think it's still important, still a lot to cover when it comes to the Trump verdict, or as I think this was Maureen Dowd said, holy cow, 34 for 45, meaning 34 felony counts for president number 45. We're going to talk about that when we come back, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Attention, if you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and now have uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call now to see if you qualify. There's no fee unless we win your case.
Your engines start making memories. It's Salem's 6 Hours of the Glen, the ultimate start to summer. Be here as IMSA's top drivers go head-to-head on one of the most historic courses in racing. Get your tickets at theglen.com today. Start the adrenaline rush. Start exploring the paddock. Start a weekend you'll never forget. It's Salem's 6 Hours of the Glen, the ultimate start to summer. Get your tickets and secure your camping spot at theglen.com today.
Rated the best hearing aids of 2023 by Forbes, the Audion Atom 2 series offers superior sound quality and functionality for a fraction of the price. For just $189 a pair, the Atom 2 features 4 different hearing modes for all types of hearing loss. It packs crystal clear sound, a nearly invisible design, and is even rechargeable.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids. They're so comfortable, I forget I'm wearing them. And the sound is amazing.
The Atom Pro 2 is our smallest hearing aid yet, featuring advanced background noise cancellation, and is the world's first hearing aid with built-in UV cleaning that kills 99% of bacteria.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed without seeing a doctor or having a hearing test.
Join over 500,000 happy customers today and get the hearing you deserve.
Call 1-800-434-9816 or go to audionhearing.com to get your pair of Audion hearing aids starting at just $189.
It is time for the question. Count the number of noodles, both white and black. How many total noodles are there?
Are you one of 50% of Americans who can answer this question correctly?
Let's look at the answer. 7.
Fox Monday. It's not about what you know.
What happened?
I got the wrong answer.
It's about how you think.
I panicked. Do not feel ashamed. You're as stupid as I am.
Patton Oswalt hosts.
Are you in the top 1%?
The 1% Club.
Tonight.
Premieres Monday.
Our beautiful view as the roof cam is back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So Maureen Dowd says, at Nativity Grade School, we grew up steeped in the lore and gore of martyrs. For their brave deeds and words, these men and women were stoned, crucified, beheaded, stripped of all their skin, shot with arrows, and cooked alive. So I'm a little surprised my siblings would somehow put Donald Trump in those martyrs' sainted company. My sister and brother, disturbed by Trump's constant chaos and slashing insults, saw their hopes for Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley evaporate. I called my Republican siblings on Friday to see if hearing the word guilty ring out 34 times in a New York courtroom had finally severed them from Trump. They are, after all, children of a police detective. My sister Peggy said she couldn't sleep all night. So I asked, why, you decided you can't vote for a felon? She said, I wasn't going to vote for Trump, but now I am, because I thought this whole thing was a sham. She tried to donate $100 to the Trump campaign, but so many people were contributing, she said the site crashed. The campaign said it raised $52.8 million in the first 24 hours after the verdict. Peggy thinks Alvin Bragg, who boasted when he ran for DA that he had sued Trump 100 times while a federal prosecutor, conjured the crime by inflating the charges from a misdemeanor to 34 felonies because he was determined to bring down Trump. She's furious the jury believed that lying, stealing Michael Cohen. Like the CNN legal analyst Ellie Honig, she questioned the judge's small donation to a pro-Biden, anti-Trump political operation. How would Democrats feel if it had been a MAGA donation? And she feels sorry for Barron Trump, the former president's 18-year-old son. I couldn't get to sleep, and I was dreaming that I was in jail after a sham court trial. I was thinking, what if they would arrest me? I'd be out of luck. Trump's line about how he's being martyred for us always seemed risible to me. But I guess it works with some people, even some people close to me. My sister is not MAGA. She voted for JFK, Jimmy Carter, Barack Obama, and wrote in Joe Biden's name in 2012. But she thinks President Biden has declined significantly and should step aside for a fresh choice. She's upset about paying over $100 for 10 items at the grocery store, and she is irked by the Democrat fervor to throw Trump in the clink. They want to put him in jail 3 days before our convention. The man is surrounded by Secret Service. What will they do? Put him in a cell with 4 Secret Service guys around him? She thinks that Alexander Soros and other Democrats who want Biden to call Trump a convicted felon over and over should be careful, given that Hunter Biden is going on trial in Delaware on gun-related charges, including one that, as Trump's lackeys have said about his own charge, is a paperwork violation. My brother Kevin said the moral of the story for Democrats is be careful what you wish for. This reminds me of Republicans celebrating when they impeached Bill Clinton, predicting that the farce, as he called it, would give Trump a bump as the GOP's pursuit of Clinton did for him. The 12 jurors didn't have the decency to stay out long enough to show that they really considered it. You want to talk about election interference, take a look at this. I would agree. I mean, just stay the one more day, if nothing else, for the optics. But the fix was in. We know in deep blue New York City, the fix was in. And the way the judge handled this, basically, it was a choose-your-own adventure that always led to guilty. You were going to, almost out of necessity, have to put guilty. Now, Maureen Dowd says, unlike my siblings, I found the guilty verdicts bracing. A dozen Americans had finally sliced through Trump's reality distortion field and said simply, you're lying and cheating and it's not right. Even though the case was a stretch and not the strongest one against Trump, there was something refreshing about the jury doing what no one else around Trump had been able to do. Not the Republican lawmakers, not the corrupt Supreme Court, not the slowpoke Merrick Garland. So the Supreme Court is corrupt now. I see. The jurors were not Trump's peers because Trump has no peer in mendacity. But it was great to see the 12 just say no. You don't slime your way into the presidency by having your creepy gopher payoff Stormy Daniels. As Chris Christie told David Axelrod, of course Chris Christie would be on David Axelrod's podcast, it may be more instructive to watch how the verdict affects Trump than how the verdict affects voters. Even though Trump has been styling himself as Al Capone, who also got brought down over bookkeeping sleaze, he seemed rattled by the verdict. A lifetime of slipping away from accountability made him think he was invulnerable. When Trump took the stage near his gilded escalator Friday morning, this time without Melania, who stayed far away from the stormy trial, he kicked off his revenge tour with a scream of consciousness, pulling out all his old tricks. He summoned his favorite boogeyman. So now, enough of this on Marine Dowd. This is just amazing to me. But I don't think she learns from her siblings. I don't think many of the media are learning that there's a lot of people, especially the people that Trump's rallies speak to, that see this for what it is. Trump, meanwhile, projected as always, deflecting criticism leveled at him and boomeranging them onto Biden. Trump once more painted Biden as faltering and senile, ignoring the fact that he himself, about to turn 78 this month, has lost a few steps. He dishonestly called Biden the most dishonest person we've ever had. Trump said we have a president and a group of fascists that are destroying our country. If Trump keeps railing about himself in apocalyptic terms, it could give Biden an opportunity, and Biden badly needed an opportunity. Okay, I don't think they've learned. I really don't. What are your thoughts? Oh, here's a question from a viewer. Next time I come across a Trump hater, I will ask them why they hate him so much. What do you think they would say? They probably, most I would say, have their talking points. A lot of times it's kind of what they're hearing in the mainstream media. So he's a threat to democracy. They can't really point to his time in office as a negative. I mean, that's why the media is so scared about this Trump nostalgia, because at a time when, like that article said, you get 10 items, you're lucky. It would be well over $100 at the grocery store. You think back, and then of course the world being on fire, you think back under the Trump administration to the peace and prosperity that we had. So I think when it comes to someone that hates Trump, if you ask them, I don't think they'll be sincere and just say, hey, he's a Republican I don't like. I think it'll be something as a threat to democracy. They may bring up January 6th or bring up something about the election, how he brings up the election being stolen, those type of things. So I'm not really sure what they say. I guess it depends on the person. All right, here's another comment from a viewer. I just received my MAGA hat. I'm afraid to wear it here in New York. New York's looking better. Set what, 7%? Biden's up 7%. But I agree. That's something I used to say on my radio show, because they would talk about the peace-loving, tolerant left. And I said, okay, if I were to walk down the crowded street with a Biden shirt, you might get some people looking at you weird or maybe say, I can't believe you support Biden. But go on the other foot and imagine if you're wearing your MAGA hat and you walk down the streets of Ithaca, or even, you name the town. I don't know why I picked on Ithaca specifically. And you could really seriously be put into some physical jeopardy. It has gotten that bad. So that's going back to one viewer's comment about the divide. I don't see the divide healing, if ever. But yes, I don't know if it is safe to wear a MAGA hat out in public. I guess it just depends on where you're at. And how comfortable you feel with people getting in your face, because they do not seem to be very uncomfortable and getting aggressive and in some cases intimidating and trying to get physical. Now, do you remember the name Dean Phillips? As far as I know, he may still be running for president. Dean Phillips is a Democrat from Minnesota. He was primarying Biden. Well, he has publicly called on Governor Hochul, our governor, to pardon former President Donald Trump after he was found guilty this week of falsifying business records. He says for the sake of the nation. Donald Trump is a serial liar, cheater, and philanderer, a 6-time declarer of corporate bankruptcy, an instigator of insurrection, and a convicted felon who thrives on portraying himself as a victim. Governor Hochul should pardon him for the good of the country. Okay. This, again, coming from Democrat Dean Phillips. You think pardoning is stupid? Making him a martyr over a payment to Stormy Daniels is stupid. Election charges are entirely different. It's energizing his base, generating record sums of campaign cash, and will likely result in an electoral boost. Now, Phillips, he did drop at least $5 million of his own cash on the long shot effort, which he abandoned in March, meaning running for president. He endorsed Biden after garnering no meaningful support in the primary. Now, a person close to Hochul told the New York Post it's unlikely she will pardon him. I cannot imagine a world where she would consider doing this. This makes no sense. Okay. I mean, this goes back to the point so many have been making. You may think it doesn't make sense, but when people see this for what it is, the weaponization of the judicial system, a quote-unquote rigged trial. It's gotten a lot of people who were on the fence over Trump, who maybe were one of these Nikki Haley supporters, saying, wait, what they're doing is wrong. What they're doing here is wouldn't have been done to anybody but Trump. And like former Congressman Joe Sempolinski said on the show, and I quote him so often, a lot of people might not like Trump, but they really, really hate this idea of a deep state or a rigged system. So keep that in mind. But we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Read a few of your comments when we come back. Stay with us.
Looks like y'all got a lot of stuff here in your water.
You're never gonna believe it, but this can filter up to 60 different contaminants from your water.
It's all about cleaner drinking water.
Dude, that's good water.
And that's good water.
Now that's good water.
That's good water, eh?
No matter where you live, there's a Culligan water expert nearby. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Race car drivers change lanes very fast, but with no outside mirrors. How come they don't crash? Introducing Angel View, the new wide-angle mirror that reduces blind spots. Angel View simply snaps over your car's rear view mirror, giving you a 160-degree view behind you. Just look at the difference. Look, ordinary rear view mirrors are small and flat, but Angel View has a huge mirror with curved glass. This convex shape allows you to see both blind spots with one glance. And with our Pro Edition special coating, it's anti-glare at night. Get your Angel View now for just $19.99. But wait, Angel View may be discontinued. Due to rising costs, Angel View is stopping manufacturing effective immediately. Once the current inventory is gone, it's gone forever. Order now.
Call 1-800-897-0371 or visit getangelview.com. Order now.
Name something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I wanted to mention tomorrow will be a best of Frankly Speaking, just taking the morning off. So just keep that in mind. I got to add that wave there. Comment from a viewer. Threats to democracy. What about Biden attacking the Second Amendment and the right to defend yourself and your home, or allowing thousands of illegal immigrants to invade the United States? Yes, I mean, the laundry list can go on, but I don't think, if you ask someone why they hate Trump, I don't think you're going to get necessarily reasonable answers. It's more based on emotion. Ex-Democrat New York governor, remember this name? David Paterson? He blasted the rigged prosecution of Donald Trump. Interesting. Paterson, speaking on the radio in New York City, agreed with Trump's gripes that the case was rigged. There are a lot of erroneous qualities to that trial. Some of the people who are involved, the person who worked at the White House somehow wound up in the Manhattan DA's office. All of them, when it adds up, really looks very much like what the former president describes it as. Former Governor Paterson said. Now, a U.S. president cannot pardon someone of state crimes, such as the felony raps involving falsifying business records that Trump was convicted of in a Manhattan court last week. But if the commander-in-chief could, he should have considered it in this case. Sometimes when you're a leader and you're willing to put yourself at the center of acrimony and controversy, both sides may come down on you, the ex-governor said. But years later, upon reflection, I'm sure they'll respect you. Trump is also facing charges. We know about that. Now, Patterson said there was a press release after former President Trump's conviction from the White House. No one is above the law. I think President Biden should be real careful. There are investigations on him and his son right now. That dog could come back to bite him. And that's a very good point. Be careful the language that you use. Former New York Republican Governor George Pataki, remember that name, joined Patterson in blasting the prosecution of Trump. And both governors warned it could boomerang on Biden and other Democrats. Pataki said the unprecedented conviction of an ex-president could lead to a tit-for-tat with conservative prosecutors indicating Biden or other Democrats down the road. That's what we've been saying about the precedent that this sets. When Biden is out of office, what is it to prevent the district attorney of some rural county in Texas prosecuting him for millions of dollars for damage done by illegal aliens because he didn't uphold his oath of office on the border? They have opened a can of worms here that can go anywhere. Yeah, and I don't think we can. I don't think you can close that can of worms. I think what's done is done, and I think you're going to have a future where the weaponization of the judicial system is unfortunately going to become commonplace. Pataki, while worrying that the conviction will cause long-term damage to the justice system, also said that in the short term, it will have a negative impact on Trump's comeback bid for the White House. He said Americans who have not followed Alvin Bragg's successful prosecution closely will just look at the outcome, that Trump is a convicted felon. That could be. If you're an undecided voter who doesn't understand Bragg's partisan and ideological history, or the judge's partisan and ideological history, it's going to have an impact on this election, which is unfair. Pataki anticipates the Biden campaign running an attack ad against Trump, reminding voters that, by the way, he's a convicted felon. This isn't about convicting Trump. This is about hurting him in the election. To use our justice system for this partisan political benefit is a disgrace, Pataki said. Yeah, there's been a lot of people weighing in on this that have kind of been interesting on that. And it is, I mean, first of all, if this is successful and Trump doesn't win re-election, yes, then expect this to happen on a regular basis. I still think it'll be used in the future because they love this idea, and so many people, Adam Schiff and so many others are saying it, that you can now call Trump a convicted felon. And they'll have that on every ad. They'll talk about it during the debate. It will be a major talking point. You will get sick of hearing convicted felon before November. If you're not sick of it already, you're probably sick of it already, actually. Mitt Romney, who Mitt Romney is not a Trump fan. If you recall, Mitt Romney tried to get people to vote for Hillary, as a matter of fact, over Trump. Then Trump wins and he begs to be Secretary of State. Trump has that awkward dinner with him, doesn't let him be Secretary of State, and then Romney was right back at it, bad-mouthing Trump. But he said that Alvin Bragg committed political malpractice by pursuing these charges against Trump. Bragg should have settled the case against Trump or would have been the normal procedure, but he made a political decision. Bragg may have won the battle for now, but he may have lost the political war. Democrats think they can put out the Trump fire with oxygen. It's political malpractice. I think there's a lot of people that this just solidifies who their vote's going for. Last month, Romney voiced bewilderment at why President Biden didn't pardon his predecessor as soon as the federal indictments came down, saying he should have fought like crazy to keep them from moving forward. Had I been President Biden, when the Justice Department brought on indictments, I would have immediately pardoned him because it makes sense, because it makes me, President Biden, the big guy and the person who pardoned the little guy. So he's saying that Bragg's office committed political malpractice. Well, I think many of us believe that you hope, because of the damage this is doing to the judicial system, the one thing you can hope that comes out of this is kind of the backfiring effect on Bragg and others who think this is just such a historic thing, a great thing, that they're bringing down a former president for political reasons. That maybe if this backfires and people, if you just look at fundraising monies, to Dean Phillips' point, who is a Democrat as well, the money that this is bringing in is, well, not to use Trump's word, but is huge. This has motivated a lot of people. This has gotten a lot of people kind of lit the fire underneath them to get them active and get them involved, and it could have a backfiring effect. But we've got to take a short break. This program is moving fast this morning. I can't believe we're already... Well, we only got about 15 minutes left, so get those comments in, get those waves in. Hope you had a lovely weekend. Thank you to everybody on Friday because of the Trump verdict. Boy, we had, 38 waves, I think, in the final count. I know we're a little quiet out there this morning. As I mentioned, I will not be in tomorrow. I'm just taking a little vacation day. I will be back on Wednesday with a live program. Tomorrow will be a best of, frankly speaking, so keep that in mind. If you set your alarm for maybe an hour earlier than you want to, just to catch the 6 o'clock hour, well, now you can still watch. But it's just going to be a best of. When we come back, a few more comments from other people on the Trump verdict. I don't think we have too much more that we're going to cover this morning. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
I'm Marianne Crawford. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me, to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
What could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth. Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
Now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth. Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one, get one absolutely free. We'll even include free shipping. Call or click now before the special buy one, get one free offer goes away.
And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Market Street Corning. Some comments from viewers. This comment saying Biden is not a president, he is a dictator, and he's proven it. A lot of people upset, and we got these comments on Friday too, with that verdict. California Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco announced that he would be voting for former President Trump, adding that it's time we put a felon in the White House. He explained in a video on Instagram that in the past 30 years, he had been doing everything to keep the community safe by arresting criminals and placing them in jails or prison. He added that he had been very critical of Governor Newsom, California Attorney General Rob Bonta, and the state legislature for slashing budgets, releasing prisoners early, passing laws to make it harder to put people in prison, and for seeming not to care about crime. So yes, California very much going through the same thing we did and are going through here in New York State. You know, for the past 30 years, I've been doing everything I could to keep our community safe by arresting criminals and putting them in jail and putting them in prison, keeping them out of our neighborhoods. For the last 5 years, I've been very critical about our governor for slashing our budgets from corrections, for letting prisoners out early, for closing our prisons. I've been critical of our state legislature for passing laws to make it harder to put people in prison. I've been critical for the changing laws that let prisoners out early. I've been critical for our attorney general for seemingly not caring about crime and really being an embarrassment to law enforcement. But he continued to explain that the love affair Newsom and the state legislature have with criminals is based on the belief that criminals are not responsible for their own actions, that they are victims of society. I'm getting tired, and I'm wondering if I'll have a change of heart and decide that, you know what, maybe I'm wrong. And I think I'm going to change teams. I know it's going to make some of you angry. I know that you're going to be mad at me. I'm going to change teams. I think they're onto something, but I don't think they're doing enough. I think it's time we put a felon in the White House. Trump 2024, baby. Let's save the country and make America great again. Wow. Changing his stance, changing his position, realizing maybe the error of his ways, and now going to the Trump team. Now, Donald Trump's conviction isn't scaring off voters, and it's actually spurring high roller donors to flock to his cause, according to Charles Gasparino. I can't tell you if Donald Trump will spend a day in jail. What I can tell you with a great degree of certainty is that Trump isn't a guy acting particularly worried about the outcome. In fact, I think it's going to propel him back into the White House, said Charles Gasparino. One thing I've got to say, though, on this, well, no, I'll skip ahead. the media is trying to paint this message, and I don't know where it's coming from, because it's some conservative outlets too, that Trump's tired, that he's worried about this, that he's got, it was like a funeral after. But I'll continue. Among the deep-pocketed group of about 24, some who were initially reluctant to support Trump for many reasons, were private equity honcho Steve Schwarzman, real estate titan, Stephen Witkoff, Jeff Speaker. He goes through all these billionaires. They met at the behest of a South Florida real estate and sugar magnate who owns a swanky venue. I'm told that Trump, with his son Eric, arrived a little late, not with a scowl but a smile. He began by cracking jokes to the guests. I'm glad, because this is what I want to hear. This is behind the scenes. The media is trying to paint it as he's just hanging his head in shame. And he talks about this fundraiser. This was a fundraiser right after the verdict. The donors came and pledged an estimated $30 million to Team Trump, because they not only see the case brought by leftist DA Alvin Bragg as a politically motivated hatchet job, they view the other cases against Trump through the same political witch hunt prism. They're increasingly willing to fight back from their bank accounts. Most of all, they fear the alternative, the hapless administration of sleepy Joe Biden that is an existential threat to the nation. Kind of an interesting piece here. I realize I'm not going to be able to get through all of it. But Charles Gasparino, he's the author of the forthcoming book, Go Woke, Go Broke, the inside story of the radicalization of corporate America. Trump's lawyer says that if it's necessary, we will take conviction appeal to the Supreme Court. I vehemently disagree that the district attorney in New York was not politically motivated here. And I vehemently disagree that President Biden and his political allies aren't up to their necks in this prosecution. So George Stephanopoulos asked William Scharf, he said, there's no evidence of that, sir. I'm not going to let you continue to say that. There's just zero evidence of that. Isn't that amazing how, and this happens a lot to the left, when something goes against their narrative, they just shout them down. There's no evidence. There's absolutely no evidence. I mean, you're telling me that there isn't a lot of questions when it comes to Mercan donating to Biden, his daughter working for as a Democrat consultant. The list can go on and on. So, of course, Stephanopoulos has to yell over Donald Trump's attorney, Will Scharf. Scharf replied, well, how about the fact that Matthew Colangelo was standing over Alvin Bragg's shoulder when he announced his verdict? Stephanopoulos says this has nothing to do with President Biden. Do you want to answer a question about the sentencing process or not? They're so scared because they realize when people realize that, how politically motivated this was, how it turns them off. So you see George Stephanopoulos having to shut this guy down by yelling over him and with a false statement that there's no evidence of that, zero. Well, Scharf said, I completely disagree that this has nothing to do with President Biden. I don't think President Trump is going to end up being subject to any sentence whatsoever. And we look forward to getting this case to the next court and taking this again all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, if necessary, to vindicate President Trump's rights. We got to take another short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Attention, if you were a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and now have uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call now to see if you qualify. There's no fee unless we win your case.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
And we are back with Frankly Speaking. Man, the show went quick this morning. I can't believe we're wrapping things up here. Trump lays out his revenge strategy because you know that's what like we had with Maxine Waters and others saying this revenge. This is getting scary, what he's saying. Well, he's told Fox and Friends Weekend that my revenge will be success. These are bad people. These people are sick, and they do things that are so destructive. If it weren't me, they'd be going after somebody else. And I know a lot of the competition. They wouldn't do so well. That's true. I mean, when they use this against a more established political entity, meaning like, you know, the old ways that we think about with a politician, they wouldn't be able to stand it. It really does take someone like Trump to be able to fight back on this. So saying, and I like that, my revenge will be success. Trump remains resolute as ever, says Michael Goodwin, because Trump sat down with the New York Post editorial board. After recounting the verdict, the story suddenly veered into crazy land. It declared that Donald Trump's insurgent behavior delights his supporters as he bulldozes the country's norms, and went on to claim now the man who refused to accept his 2020 election loss is already seeking to delegitimize his conviction, attempting to assert the primacy of his raw political power over the nation's rule of law. Isn't that easy? Isn't that a good way that the left has that when it comes to the media? That if you feel that the trial's unfair, they say, well, now you're the threat to the judicial system. The sweeping condemnation surely delighted the Trump haters who dominate the paper staff and readership and likely will appear in a future Pulitzer application. And who was this with? I think it was the New York Times are referencing. Yet the same facts could have been conveyed more clearly and fairly simply by saying that Trump is appealing the verdict, is still running for president, and has a very good chance of winning. But straightforward facts don't have a chance in heck when the gray lady's got a narrative to spin and a political agenda to push. The agenda is to re-elect Joe Biden. That means spinning the narratives that Trump is a wrecking ball who bulldozes the country's norms. It's dressed up fear-mongering. That's not to deny that the former president is tough, a tough customer who sometimes goes too far, but he's an amateur when it comes to breaking norms. And they go through some more interesting, I don't know why I started this because I know I'm not going to have time to finish it as we're nearly out of time. Although he wasn't quite as relaxed Friday morning, his tone and composure again struck me as remarkable, given that the verdict had come less than 24 hours earlier. When I told him so, he was briefly quiet, then responded, "What happened to me has never happened to anybody else, but I march on. Some people say I'm a warrior, so I guess I am." Indeed he is, a warrior for our time, says Michael Goodwin. Trump also said over the weekend that he's okay with serving potential jail time or house arrest. I'm okay with it. I saw one of my lawyers the other day on television saying, no, you don't want to do that to the president. I said, you don't beg for anything. But Trump added, I don't think the public would stand it. I'm not sure the public would stand it. I think it would be tough for the public to take. You know, at a certain point, there's a breaking point. I'm fighting for the Constitution, Trump said. It's referencing Melania. She's fine, but I think it's very hard for her. I mean, she's fine, but it's, you know, she has to read all this, we'll say, garbage. And then Speaker Johnson, Mike Johnson, has vowed to fight back with everything in our arsenal after the Trump verdict. We are the rule of law party. Chaos is not a conservative value. We have to fight back, and we will with everything in our arsenal, but we would do so within the confines of the rule of law. We believe in our institutions. We are conservatives. And we are trying to conserve the greatest country in the history of the world, as institutions are an important part of that. Our system of justice is an important part of that. So nothing really specific there, but Mike Johnson has been, as you know, very good at what he's been saying. Laura Trump slammed Larry Hogan. If you recall, Larry Hogan saying we have to accept the justice system worked in this case. And she said, I'll tell you one thing. I don't support what he just said there. I think it's ridiculous. He doesn't deserve the respect of anyone in the Republican Party at this point. And quite frankly, anybody in America, if that's the way you feel, that's very upsetting to hear that. All right, we are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everybody who joined us. Have a great day. We'll be back Wednesday. Tomorrow will be a best of. I hope you enjoy the best of. And join us on Wednesday as well for Frankly Speaking. Only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We'll see you soon.
The Big Fox website is
is here. Now, WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website.